So Kurt, you were telling me that you had a bone to pick. Is it a bone to pick?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
But it's not just me. I think this is something that affects all of us, especially in the D.C. area. They're called bumper stickers, right?
Yes.
So they're supposed to go on your bumper.
If that's what I'm thinking about.
I'm sick of seeing them on hatchbacks, windows, the part of the trunk. Am I wrong?
Inside of preteens' bedrooms.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the bumper stickers in there.
Welcome to the Pilot Waves podcast, Kurt. We were
Thanks, buddy.
So the Pilot Waves podcast, and first let's pay the bills. That was WEA by the Mostly Dead. Kurt Foster, you are in that band.
I am.
Thanks for being here.
I play the drum box. I'm jealous that guitar players have git box.
I never heard that ever.
What?
No.
Well, you're not hanging out in Appalachia or some of these other places.
No,
you ever heard
I
a guitar
don't.
called a git box?
No, I never heard it. What
All
is
right, how
it?
about an axe? You've heard it referred to as an axe, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As a drummer, I already hate my life because I have all the shit
the equipment
that
to
I have
carry.
to haul. There's no one to help, etc. But then on top of that, I don't even have any cool nicknames.
There's no nickname
The
for a drum
skins,
kit? Yeah,
that's
the skins.
associated with Daniel Snyder, and I don't want any part of that.
Maybe that's. Did you read the thing today about how he's just going to straight up bribe people?
Yeah.
Whatever, dude.
He's like, I'm just starting my foundation where I write each of you a check for $100. That's what he should just do.
Sure. Who gives a fuck, man? And I'm not one of those come off the high horse like there's better things in the world for us to worry about, because there's not. It's all context. But what I will say is this: obviously it's a done deal, and the only way it's going to change is if someone sues the pants off of him and they win.
It's going to change though.
Oh, he
you
has
can
to.
already like the
The trademark issue. It seems like it's going to be the biggest sticking point.
yeah, and the brand is very valuable.
It's like fifth or something
Yeah,
most valuable
yeah.
brand.
And they haven't won anything in forever. So
How long is that going to be? And actually, this is the last. I don't want to be too. I don't want to be too sports heavy.
I thought this was a sports show. That's specifically why I came on.
I'm glad you said that, Kurt, because what the Pilot Ways podcast is all about is Pilot Ways podcast is about the intersection of commerce and art. Specifically, we like to talk to entrepreneurs, musicians like yourself. We like to talk to artists. We like to bring up the topics of why you do what you do, how it's expensive as shit, and how no one's paying you for it. All
So
those
sports, like
yeah,
I said.
totally.
That's what. Yeah.
Stickball and its subsidiary sports.
So not only as an independent artist is no one paying you, but then apparently if you don't have vinyl for sale, they're gonna doubly not pay you.
So I saw you at the Mostly Dead show, which I would like to give props to everyone who went out to that show.
Yes, because that was the night of the snowstorm last week.
Yes, you definitely took your life. I did not realize it was going to get that bad.
Yeah, my drive home was very because we had to
Yep.
it took us forever to load out, and then we had to drive back to Zach's, and then I had to drive home from there. It was not fun.
How come you don't just sleep at his house?
I don't want to do that. I'm an old man, and I don't want to sleep on a couch anymore.
Yeah.
Plus, we just went on tour, and I spent several nights doing that anyway, and I'd rather die on the drive home than sleep on a couch.
You know, it was exciting for the road trip for the podcast, which I guess at some point I'll talk on the podcast about what happened. There's actually, I think, an interview in the can I have with Becca Steinhoff where we talk about. You'll just have to wait for that one.
Ooh, teaser.
It's
nice.
a teaser. Oh,
Way to build some buzz.
Spoiler, my grandmother dies. So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
Buzzkill.
And then in a weird sort of serendipitous thing on the show that we talk about, our grandmother's dying, because actually Becca's grandmother died too. We play this band called Electric Grandmother. Which,
That's an awesome name, by the way.
isn't it? It's based on like an old TV movie or something like that. Or a Ray Bradbury story. You know, this is how ridiculous this podcast is. This has actually come up like 3 or 4 times. Where does the name come from? I have a computer 5 feet,
It's
not even
I
5
could-
feet. It's like
I could see
5
it.
inches away
I
from
can
here.
see it from where I'm sitting.
Um,
I don't want to know where it comes from.
But
I
we-
like to let my mind wander and
we got
imagine the realm of Electric Grandma.
We got up on a tangent. Talk about a little bit the Mostly Dead show. You put on a fantastic show, and you got written up for it too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I thought the show went well. I mean, I wish more people had been there because it was a record release, but it's not a big deal. But all the bands were great. So we just tried to do a lineup of local bands. So the Creep Crusades, who used to be the Pharmacists, are really good. BSR from Reston, and then Ish from Frederick, Maryland. So we've got some stuff coming up with some of those bands over the summer, but nothing's been published yet. But yeah, it was a great night. I mean, I couldn't really ask for anything more, except for hundreds of people to come and buy merch, because that's what I'm in it for.
I mean,
I'm just trying to sell T-shirts, man.
I don't think that's too much to ask of anyone, really. Especially
Also,
come do it in some
yeah.
3 feet of snow.
Yeah, that's
I didn't take just my life in my hands. I used Uber, so I took other people's lives in my hands.
Well, that's why I like to spread around the danger. Mm-hmm. The big bummer from the show.
I actually used the words "don't be such a pussy" to the Uber driver.
You were just yelling at that at the show, like in between bands. I was like, "What is this? What's going on?"
My bad.
No, I also hate when I get home from a show and I have drink tickets in my wallet. Why didn't I hand those out to you or Dan or any of my other friends who came to the show?
I would say
I just don't think about it. I get very Gollum about them, and I'm like, I must hold, even though
You don't drink
I
at
don't
shows.
drink at shows. Maybe I'll have a beer after I play,
Right.
but I didn't want to have a beer that night because of all the snow.
We were gonna
I
die.
needed my wits about me.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get a buzz on.
Would you say that not having beer? Or do you think not having any drinks actually helps in a snow type situation? I'm asking you to take.
Well, that's a good
really,
question, 'cause I get
really
a
brave
little-
stance here.
Well, it depends. I think it would hurt me now. I think when I used to drive my sweet 97 Corolla, it would help because that car did not do well in the snow, so I would get very white knuckled and tense.
So having like a couple beers to take the edge off is
Right.
probably the smart thing to do.
However, now I drive a RAV4, and I'm like, I put it in the low gear, and I'm like, it's fine. Like I'm super relaxed because this thing does pretty well. That if I think if I had that buzz going in that, I'd definitely be dead. Not from drunk driving, just from like, I'd be spinning off the side of the road and be like, the car will figure it out, and then I'd go into a ravine.
Or and this is a special shout out to a friend. You can just let Jesus take the wheel.
No comment.
Oh, so speaking of Jesus taking the wheel, this is going to be the first part of our interview with comedian Chelsea Shorte. Chelsea sat down with me about a week or so ago, and we talked about just her life and what's taking her from Virginia over to DC, and some thoughts she has on moving to different areas and how that could be a little more successful for her career. She's also loves DC and thinks it's been such a great town for her in terms of helping her create her craft. And I think you're really going to enjoy this interview with her. Without further ado, here's Chelsea Shorte. So let's go ahead and start the interview. We're right into the midst of it. I'm joined here by local comedian Chelsea Shorte.
Hi.
I want to thank you for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Mostly because I've seen you twice now, and both times I actually did laugh in that belly laugh kind of way.
Oh, thank you.
And that's when I told Becca, I was like, I definitely want Chelsea on the show. She is top notch.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I would say that my favorite joke, and I told you when I texted you, was the I don't need these glasses, but I do listen to WAMU.
Oh, yeah, that was new.
Oh, man. And not only was it funny, but you saw that crowd didn't really laugh at it because they were like, oh, shit, I listen to why is that funny? I listen to WAMU. And I'm like, well, that's because
We're all nerds.
Yeah.
We're so pretentious.
And it's funny because NPR doesn't make me feel like I'm better than anyone else, but it doesn't make me not feel like I'm better than
I mean, it just makes you feel like on par in this market in DC. If you don't listen to WAMU, what are you doing with your life?
Exactly. And they're actually doing something really cool. I saw with local music now, where they're trying to introduce the concept of local music on your local radio station.
Oh, nice. Somebody
cool.
needs to be doing it.
Where do you find yourself in terms of, as a local comedian and a local artist, do you find that this area is helping you maintain, like, in terms of your artistic aspirations?
Oh, I think it's perfect for me. I think DC as a comedy city is really great because there aren't that many comedians here as far as like LA or New York, when there are hundreds of people and it's tough to get stage time. There are a lot of people here, and the community is small enough that there's competition, but it's competition to make you better. It's not like so vicious or vindictive.
Sure.
And it's really great how the comedy community in DC has grown. Like, our open mics, people actually come now, and it took some years to get there, but we're building a fledgling economy of comedy where people actually show up to open mics and see us, and it's so much self-made here, where there are a lot of producers who are putting on shows, and we don't have that many comedy clubs. There's one comedy club, which is the DC Improv, and there's the Arlington Draft House, which is getting into the market, but so much is DC comedian self-made, and it's really amazing. I love being in DC.
And did you grow up in DC? I didn't.
No,
obviously, I didn't do my work.
No,
before
it's
the interview.
fine. I grew up in Richmond and then went to school at the University of Virginia. So I came to the DC area after college for work.
Did you know Jesse Thomas when you were in Richmond?
No.
Okay.
I didn't start doing comedy until I moved after college to come here.
Okay.
Yeah.
What brought you to the comedy? Like, what made you desire it? And and it seems like, and tell me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you do have aspirations to use it as a career. It's not just a hobby.
I was really lonely and really sad and really depressed when I first got to DC after college, and I didn't really know that many people, so I ended up taking an improv class thinking that, hey, I'm kind of funny and I want to meet some people. I ended up, being a standout in that class, even though it was a 101 class, and which meant that I was like the cream of the shit.
Right.
But didn't make that many friends, but I just discovered a love of making people laugh, and so I kept doing it, and the friends came with just doing it so much. And then after about 2.5 or maybe 3 years of doing improv, I branched out into stand-up, and then stand-up is just a different kind of high from getting on stage, and you get to do whatever you want. You get to rule your 5 minutes rather than having to share it. And I love the freedom of stand-up more than improv, even though improv is fun.
Did you? I saw that you were on the Charlie Visconage show. Did you meet him through the improv class?
Yeah, through the improv community,
okay,
which is pretty healthy in DC. But I don't think I ever took a class with Charlie.
Okay,
we just know each other. Because at the time, we were hot young students trying to get our hands into every performance that we could.
I love his. I'm such a nerd for that guy. I've asked him to be on the show, and he one time he kind of like was like, maybe email me later, and then he stopped replying to my emails, and I was so sad because I'm such a nerd for that show. I think I've seen it 4 times. Which when I told him that, I think that honestly might have scared him off. I was
no one sees it 4 times.
Yeah, I know. He's like, what? And I was like, oh. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like he'd have a lot of insight to share on what it takes to like run your own show. Like
Totally. And that particular theater that he runs, the home theater, the Visconage show,
The DCAC?
oh man, that place is such a phenomenal place to see a show.
Yeah, except for the toilet in the back.
I try not to ever use the bathrooms in most
you gotta
theaters.
hold it. That's the rule. Like you can't use the restroom while the show's going on.
And it's cruel that they have beer and wine in that show because that's just, I mean, it's trapping you. It's absolutely trapping you.
Yep. Strong bladders.
So the DC area is, and I'm glad you alluded to it because is it the last 3 or 4 years, or has it even been longer than that or shorter than that it seems to have exploded in terms of how much comedy that you can find? Because it does seem like now at least 4 nights a week I can find either an open mic or some form of comedy versus before, which was maybe once every couple of weeks.
Oh, well, I've only been doing stand-up in DC for about 3 years, and I think over the last year and a half it's really blown up with more opportunities for paid work as a DC comedian, because as I said before, there was only the DC Improv and then sometimes the Draft House, but now there are showcases going on where people pay to get in, so as a comedian you get paid for your performances. I'm sorry, I forgot the rest. What was it?
I mean, does it really even matter? No, I mean, I'm just kidding. No, it seems like in the last couple of years.
What I was going to say is that it's even more than that you can get out and see live stand-up. You can see stand-up from local comedians, from anybody, from major comedians, 7 nights out of the week in DC. And as a comedian, that's great because I get up multiple times in one night.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that ultimately what kind of attracts you, though, if you're thinking about moving to another city? Is it more opportunities to work, or is it a more fruitful existence, like a better paying existence that you're looking for? Or is it both? And we're back.
We're back and we're talking sports. What's the deal with the Wizards? They're headed to the playoffs. Sorry.
So you were telling me during the break when we were in the green room getting sucked off by those hookers. You were remarking. You remarked to me that you go to the Nats games where they have like sort of the live concert series.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, and let's talk a little bit about, because I want to tie it into one of the Pileaways things that we get our rocks off about.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead.
Well, so we go to every concert series they have, regardless of the band. Usually, in spite of the band. So I've seen the Wallflowers and Third Eye Blind, and I've seen.
Don't you put Jacob Dylan in the same.
Hey man, I saw Jacob Dylan back in '97 when he was in a band called the Wallflowers. All right, so I got
that song. One Headlight is so good.
Oh, they played that. I don't know if you realize that it's still part of their set list.
I would imagine it opens and closes.
But we also. Yeah, and it's also the extended, jam in the middle. No, but we also saw like Big and Rich and like Dierks Bentley, like these country acts. And, I think it's a sign of getting older that sometimes you just want to sit out in a warm open air stadium and drink a lot of beer and listen to music, even if it's music that you hate. And it's also pretty fun to see him drive a stage out onto the field.
I mean, we were saying that, and this is something that I try to have a discussion about. And I know this is actually really important to your band, The Mostly Dead. The idea of practicing, putting in the effort to be behind your performance too, because whether or not you put on a good performance, I mean, there's a crapshoot element to that, of course, but it's less likely that it's going to suck ass if you really put in the practice. And that's actually what I'm paying for. That's what my $10 was for, was all that practice you guys put in, and that's a paltry sum.
Yeah, that's what I always say, that whatever local band that you see at some shithole that is the shittiest band you've ever heard, still that day alone, that was probably, you're looking at an 8-hour investment of their time to get together, get their stuff packed up, get there, set up, stand around for hours, play for 30 minutes, pack it up, go home, let alone all the time they've invested in getting there. So, I don't know. I don't know what the point of the story is.
The point of the story is that musicians and artists kind of get the shaft when it comes to
probably the greatest people in the world. And,
not to take it too far down like a wouldn't it be nice kind of path, but there is a frustrating element to that though, right? Because I do see the point of view that you have and other people we've had on the show, which is you don't want it to be your career because that changes the art in a certain way, but you do get paid absolute shit. And it doesn't have to be your career, but it is bullshit how much you get paid.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you.
And I know it's not for the money.
Right. What I found is all I really want is to play at a place where there's a little back room where I can warm up and change my pants before and after the show in peace. Mm-hmm. The rest I don't care about. That I'm not even joking here.
No,
that is really all I want. When I get to play a club, whether it be like the Black Cat or we played a place in Akron called Annabelle's, was like a beer cooler, but that was also the green room. I could set up my drum throne, I could do my warm-ups and put my shorts on without trying to do it standing on my shoes in the disgusting men's room. DC9 has a back room as well. Anyway, that's really all I want. And that's what I do it for, Alex. 5 minutes of private warm-up and short changing.
Is that ultimately what kind of attracts you, though, if you're thinking about moving to another city? Is it more opportunities to work, or is it a more fruitful existence, like a better paying existence that you're looking for? Or is it both?
It's both. You won't get... What's great about DC is that there are rooms that you can get up multiple nights a week, and there are people in there. So in LA and New York, there are a lot of opportunities to see really great comedy, like actual professionals. So the amateurs, they don't really see anybody sitting in the seats when they go to perform in a basement of some rinky-dink bar.
Interesting.
But in New York or in LA, that's where managers are, that's where agents are, that's where people who can see your talent actually live. So in DC, you can put some of your content on YouTube. You can put some of your content on SoundCloud. You can go to festivals and stuff and start making, a little bit of a name. But if you really want to get work as a comedian or as a writer, then you need to move to an area or to a market where people are actually looking to discover you.
Sure. And I think, and Becca alluded to this in another discussion, is that it's not always about the stand-up. It's about the other opportunities that there are for you to work sort of in your world. Like you could get a job as a writer in LA, or you could in Chicago, you can also be an improv player.
Right.
So there's other avenues that are in those markets besides the actual although stand-up, I think she was saying New York City is just straight up stand-up, like
Right,
if
right.
that's what you want to do. I guess soap opera acting too. I hear there's a lot of that. up
Yeah,
there.
the way that the comedy industry is now, you can't just get away with being a pure stand-up. You have to be doing something else, either writing or producing, acting, all that.
What does DC need to change about itself in order to be a little bit like, what would they like if DC said, no, Chelsea, you can't go? What can we do to change in our city to make you stay?
Wow. It would need. So what does New York and LA have? They have
Tons more people.
They have shows. They actually have like late night shows, or produce sitcoms, or stupid reality shows where you write sentences for actors who can't think of their own shit.
Oh man,
like stuff.
I didn't know comedians write those lines.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
On some shows that you think like, oh, that actor is so witty, so much more witty than I gave them credit for. No,
Someone wrote
a
it.
writer wrote that and fed that line to them.
Man,
So we need
my
like
illusion is shattered.
like so a show comparable to New York or LA, or multiple shows like that.
Interesting. No, I had no idea. Do you find it odd to do a podcast in a basement, or have you found that this is generally the environment that you've done podcasts?
This is where podcasts, I think this is the lowest altitude of which I've done a podcast. Usually they're in like a living room.
Oh.
This is perfectly fine. I love the ambiance here.
Thank you. I tried to. The Christmas lights, I think, give it a sort of like warmth. But at the same time, the basement definitely gives it a creep factor that I try to minimize. I haven't really figured out how to do it. I tried the
love
giant.
the instruments, the amplifiers, everything.
Oh, thank you.
It all works.
Thank you.
It's the perfect recreation of a real basement.
Would you say that it does it make you think of Wayne's World, or does it make you think of?
This is high class. You guys can't see it, but there's a lot of art in the room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of like paintings.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's high class.
Well, thank you.
It's like if Wayne went to conservatory.
Oh
That's kind of what it is.
man, I feel like that I could put that on my business card. So the reason I asked you about the different podcasts is I know, and this is actually something that I've really I've set it out. Like if I'm going to do a podcast, I need to listen to the other podcasts. There's about 10 local or close to local DC based podcasts. And then you started listing 2 or 3 that you have been on, and there were 2 that I hadn't heard of. And I was like, holy crap, now the list gets longer. Can you name some of the podcasts you've been on?
Sure. I was on David Coulter's. He has 2 podcasts. One where him and his co-host and their guests, they pitch a new movie. And then his other podcast is where, him, his co-host, and the guests, we just talk about the week in the news. I was on Mike Brown, or Old Mike B's. He runs a Ripped Radio Network
Okay.
Radio show every Saturday with him and his crew. I've done the 3 Guys On podcast, which was a lot of fun.
Man. And when we were talking earlier before the show, you said that you had actually thought about maybe starting a podcast yourself. Do you know what your, like we said angle, what the gimmick is?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I think it would be a lot of fun. It's just like actually doing it and investing in it. You want to make sure you've got a great idea. The idea I have is the vanity podcast. I think, and it's a little bit true. I think a lot of people who meet me, or comedians who know me, think that I'm a little bit full of myself.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably true. And I'd want to have a show where I'd have a guest on, and then that guest would just interview me instead of me interviewing them, or possibly that this guest and we just end up, making outlandish claims about how great we are, and almost like improv this dual interview where we're both just boasting on ourselves.
Sure.
And following the boast down the rabbit hole, and it's an hour's worth of made up amazing accomplishments that we both have.
I think both those ideas are solid. It's kind of tickles your improv sensibilities, the idea of having to make up the boast. I played that game before, with your friend, where you're like trying to make outrageous claims about things you invented and things like that.
Yeah.
No, that's rad. I like that. Do you, because you joked about that too in your stand-up, about how some of the comedians give you a little bit of shit for being a little, prideful or boastful in that way. Like, how much of that is rooted in truth, and how much of that is rooted in, if there's, man, I don't want to get too bullshitty here, but the character that is the person on stage.
Oh, geez.
Like, is that really who you are, or do you pump it up a little bit for the stage, or are you that, full of yourself? But in a good way.
Know.
You mean? I mean, in a good way.
I don't know if I can tell the difference anymore. I do put myself up before I get on stage. Before comedy in DC had this big boom, there was a time when nobody was coming to our shows, and I'd go up late because I was a new comic, and so it'd be like 11:45 or past midnight when I'd go up, and there'd be absolutely nobody left, and there'd be nobody to cheer for me when I go on stage. So I ended up like just cheering for myself, and now that's part of my like grace note before I go on stage. I just cheer really loudly for myself and raise my hands, and that gets me excited, and it's part of my routine now. How much of it is part of my, I love to look good. I love to dress well. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun to be this over the top character. I do think I'm really great at a lot of things. I don't know where this boastful, overly dramatic on stage Chelsea ends and where I actually begin.
You don't know. So
stage.
do you think that if someone were to tell you, because I have this happen to me sometimes, where they're like, "Are you doing the show right now? Are you doing the show?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing the show. I'm just talking to you. I just happen to have." But do you have people who are like, "Are you doing shtick with me right now? Like, are you doing?"
I have a lot of people like, because I guess they think I'm full of myself. When I give them a compliment and
yes.
they sometimes think I'm being sarcastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I might be sitting here in this basement with you, and I'd be like, "You have a lovely basement."
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Shut up. I worked really hard in this basement. To stop making fun of me." I'm like, "I'm not. I'm really enjoying this basement." So I get that sometimes.
But don't you know some of, I think it's an older generation thing. The generation before us, that is sometimes how they would do backhanded compliments. They would say like, "This is quite a home you have here. Lots of space."
No, I don't do that. If I don't want to, I will not fake compliments. Like there's this thing that we do, and we've been socialized and conditioned to do it, that if you're in a social situation and somebody gives you a compliment, you look for a way to compliment them immediately back.
Right.
I don't do that. Like, if somebody compliments me, I'll just be like, "Thanks," and then that's it. I won't and sometimes you can tell people are looking for a compliment back. They're fishing for something, and I just won't give it. If there's nothing for me to compliment you on, I won't.
So, because we actually said there's a reason, of course, that we do this podcast, and that is because we're trying to put more butts in the seats. We want people to go out and see live comedy. We want people to go see live music, and we want people to enjoy the local businesses. Let's talk about some of the dates you have coming up, because one of them in particular I was pretty excited about, the DMV roast of the Washington, D.C. Metro.
That's right. Yeah, I'm excited. I participated in last month's roast, where we roasted Bao Bao, the baby panda, and I had such a great time. And it was such a great exercise for writing jokes that I can't wait to participate. And April 1st at the Brixton, we're doing the roast of the Metro, and I'm going in. I'm not going to spare any kind of niceties for the Metro.
Well, I was going to say, it's not like, is there really anyone who's going to go like, "Hey, you leave the Metro alone. It works hard for you."
There won't be a soul there to defend the Metro.
And then April 2nd at the Wonderland Ballroom.
That's right. I'm going to be on Haywood's show there. Just got booked for that today. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
And then April 7th, the Perfect Liars Storyteller.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to be telling a story. It'll either be a truth or a lie, and you have to come and decide which one.
Have you done the storytellers before? Any storytellers?
I have done some. There used to be a show run by a really eccentric, very sexual, adventurous man who would come from New York, and he took the show to Philly and Boston, and he used to do a show in Black Fox Lounge in DuPont in the basement there. They have a few shows there.
And it was like an erotic story kind of
it was
thing?
erotic storytelling.
Wow.
Queer. He had like one show for queer storytellers, of which I participated, and then another for like everybody's storytelling. And it was just like, it was half featured performers, half open mics, and people would come down and share their own like erotic or naughty sometimes.
Was there a woman with a feather mask? It looked like a peacock.
I don't remember seeing The Mask, but there were a few faces that, you know, I saw more than once who had, I could tell, like, an archive of stories to share. It was a lot of fun always. But you know, I have auditioned for some storytelling other shows. It's something I hope to grow in though. So any opportunity that I can to tell a story, I want to take it.
So in terms of like the dream, so like, you know, moving and finding yourself in a city where you could work more often and ply your craft a little more often, what else is on the horizon of like goals or accomplishments that you want to achieve? And when I think, I'm not just looking like 10 years out, like you want to have a talk show, but like in the next few years, like what's on the agenda? Like what can people help you achieve?
Wow, I just want to get on any stage that I can. I want to get a good video together so I can shop it to different festivals and start, you know, going across the country and just meeting other comedians that are in that city and building my network like that. So if I go to St. Louis for a festival and then a couple months later, I'm like, you know what, maybe I want to go to St. Louis. I already know a few people there. I can go out, maybe get on some shows and build my small network that way. I guess I haven't been really looking to like create new fans. It's just more like I want to grow the network so I can get on a bunch of stages. Kind of like the way that you picked me up for the podcast. You know, it's like I got booked on this show. You were in the audience. You were like, oh, she's funny. Come on my podcast. Like I just want to get on stages so I can link opportunities together.
No,
and
I dig
experience new things. Like I did a show at the Howard Theater in August of last year, and I did I hosted an HRC fundraising event.
What's HRC?
The Human Rights Campaign. It's the gay rights.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just didn't know the initials.
No, that's fine. And when I was about to go on stage for this HRC fundraising MC hosting job, and somebody like slipped me their card and was like, hey, I saw you at the Howard Theater and I would love for you to act in my play. Like opportunities like that where, you know, my performance begets other performances.
So performing is, I mean, comedy, improv, like is performance like the ultimate thing for you right now? Or is it stand-up centric?
Well, stand-up is where I think where I will get the most opportunity to showcase. But I want to grow my skills in so many different things. I want to be writing, you know, screenplays and writing sketches, acting a little bit. I want to be able to be the type of performer that anytime somebody sees my stand-up and is like, can you also do this? I can be like, yes, I do have some experience in that. Here's some evidence of that experience, whether it's a YouTube link or a packet of writing. I want to be able to be good or passable to great at anything that comes my way as far as comedy.
I get it. And so then tell me, because I think people are hearing a lot about the things you love to do. So why do you do the things you love to do? What brings you to that? I know we talked earlier about how you ended up in the stand-up world, but what is it about performing that draws you to it? Why do you love it?
crock of shit.
It looks good on you, though. So welcome back to the Pilotways podcast. That was the Devil's Walk as Saints, and I said I was going to look up and see when they were playing at the Velvet Lounge.
You didn't do it, did you?
Didn't do it, but I can...
I mean, you could just pause the recording.
Why don't you tell us what you thought of that song while I look it up? No, look it up on your phone.
I'll look it up on my phone. I'll also tell you I like the song a lot.
And earlier we heard...
I really like the bass line.
Thank you.
Which sounds condescending, but
I don't know why I said
don't mean
thank
it
you.
like that. Yeah, did you write it? No, I thought it was a cool tune.
Maybe it's derivative of something that my band wrote. And we just don't know it.
Electric Cousin.
Electric
That's
Cousin.
terrible. That's terrible.
But real quick, we heard
Damn
a
it.
song earlier too from Harness Flux, who are going to be playing the Galaxy Hut on March 30th. And Kurt's still using his phone. I'm going to paint a little radio picture for you. There's a slight glow coming from his phone. I don't know if you guys have heard of these things, smartphones. Crazy devices. You can do all sorts
searching.
of. And
Wow, this has ground the show to a halt, hasn't it? Oh, full schedule. We're getting somewhere. What are they called?
Devil's Walk as Saints.
All right, hold on. How do you spell that?
Devils.
You should probably talk while I look at this part.
Yeah, well, we can always shorten
Okay,
the-
Saturday, March 29th. This Saturday.
This Saturday, March 29th, the Devil's Walk as
So
Saints.
that presumes you're dropping this episode
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
This interview will be dropped tomorrow for the 2 for Wednesday.
So 2 for Wednesday.
2 for Wednesday. You're going to
reminds
get
me-
2 comedians every Wednesday for a 2 for. That's what's going to happen assuming I can interview another comedian between now and next Tuesday, next
See,
Wednesday.
I like the idea of 2 comedians for Wednesday because as much as I love 2 songs for Tuesday, few things are worse than when you're sitting there and you're like, all right, the second song from the band is ending and you're like, who's next up? And then a Bob Seger song comes on and you're like, I got to sit through 2 of these.
Mm-hmm.
I just kill myself at that point.
How do you feel about
Not
when
really.
they get cute with the song selection, where they play like some ridiculous deep cut as the first one, and then the second one is like, I don't know, some obscure bullshit as well?
I don't know. I'd prefer obscure at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
But the only people who do 2 for Tuesday are like the classic rock stations, so they don't even know
Oh
what
no,
that-
my friend, that is ridiculous. Haven't you ever experienced satellite radio, sir?
Well, define experienced. Have I stolen?
Put it in your butt.
Several satellite radios? Yes, in that sense, I have experienced it. Wait, do they really do 2 for Tuesday on satellite radio?
Yeah, of course.
I thought that was copyrighted by the FM Radio Council.
Specifically, DC 101 owns the rights to 2 for Tuesday.
Remember that when you were a kid and you would meet someone from like another region and they would mention something like
Yeah,
2 for
top
Tuesday
10 of
or my
10,
3 songs.
top
and you'd
8
be
at
like,
8.
But we came up with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That blew my mind because I met someone, and this is the last boring story that I will I'll hit you with. They're all
great.
They look good on you though.
Remember that Bob Seger story I told?
And then
that was really good.
And then you're gonna hear the rest of the interview with Chelsea Shorte, local comedian, and really fucking hilarious person. I'm sorry that you didn't get to hear the interview, Kurt, but I'm
I'll
gonna
listen
play
to it on 2 for Wednesday.
on 2 for Wednesday. I'm gonna upload the show. Wow, how meta will that be? You're gonna hear yourself on the show, hearing the interview for the first.
Talking about Bob Seger and agreeing with myself, even if no one else does.
I got off on a tangent. What was I gonna talk about before that?
You were going to talk about when we would meet people from other regions and we were trying to take ownership of wearing the backpack on one shoulder, tying your pants up, and et cetera.
So I was telling this girl that I had met, and I was in West Virginia. And I was at the pool, and
of course,
I'm trying to say that even worse the second time. I was in West Virginia, staying at a hotel, and I was playing in the pool with a young female compatriot, and
jeez, man, you're making the innocent tale of youth sound so.
I'm taking it a Moonrise Kingdom direction.
It's a David Lynch kind of territory at this point. Moonrise Kingdom would be nice and sweet. This is like a young woman who is my compatriot. The sinister underbelly of the suburbs.
And I remember asking her, like, hey, do you know the Morning Zoo with Don and Mike? And she said...
Great. That's a great icebreaker.
Well, at that point, we'd already been playing in the pool for several hours.
Jeez.
Does it make it weirder that we
Were
were
you
playing
holding her in the water? Because that's what it sounds like.
Do you mean like was I holding her under the water?
Yeah, or just you can't leave.
No, of course not.
Was this a put a lotion on its skin kind of situation?
No. I mean, never did I use anyone's skin to make a suit, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, fair enough. That is what I was asking.
Thank God.
Okay, but so you ask, and what did she say? We have our own morning zoo
No, she...
with Joe and Zed.
Man, you took that in a strange direction. No, she said, yeah, I know the Morning Zoo. It's Todd and Zed. And I was like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, 105.1 WAVA. And she's like, no, you're wrong. And
She just doesn't get it, man.
well, and then long story short, she ended up spraying me with a hose in my face. until I finally had enough, and I got really mad because she just, kept spraying me with a hose in my face again and again and again, to the point where I got mad, and I took this bucket that I was using, to, pail of water and stuff, and I threw it at her, as a get away from me. And my grandmother came over,
Water battle.
and she like grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and was, and called me like a crazy person for because she only saw the bucket, go flying.
Good thing she wasn't an electric grandma, because she would have, shorted out the whole compound.
I'm going to play Electric Grandmother after the next, because I want you to listen to one of their songs.
And by the way, that little girl
Right.
was Condoleezza Rice.
Good or passable to great at anything that comes my way as far as comedy.
I get it. And so then tell me, because I think people are hearing a lot about the things you love to do. So why do you do the things you love to do? What brings you to that? I know we talked earlier about how you ended up in the stand-up world, but what is it about performing that draws you to it? Why do you love it?
It makes me happy. Yeah,
Right.
getting on stage and twisting words and hiding a punchline, and then the big reveal and having laughs, that feels good. And even when that doesn't happen, it's like a challenge. Oh, they didn't laugh at this thing, but it's still something I want to express, or it's a challenge. I know this is funny. Can I convey that to them so that they get what I'm saying? So it's either you succeed and it's a lot of fun, or you fail and you have to challenge yourself to earn that success. So I love making people laugh, and I love the feeling. It just makes me happy.
Do you, this is going to seem off topic, but it's not. Do you journal at all?
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a kid that tried to journal so many times. I have so many notebooks at home of just one entry.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I cannot sit down and journal consecutive days.
How do you think you're doing so far on your chart? If you don't have a journal and you don't kind of keep track of where you've been, and I know that just based on I'm now no longer doing my act at 11:45, how do you sort of gauge whether or not you're improving as a performer and if you're achieving better things?
Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that I could tell is that, I didn't perform at 11:45, and there were times when I'd walk in and people are like, "Oh, you're here. Okay, well, we'll definitely get you on the list," stuff like that. And still, because that's part of growing up as a stand-up. When people don't know you and they don't trust your talent, you get put on the end of the list. But if you show up, maybe I only show up 5 minutes before the list closes and I get my name on there. Maybe I'll go up, in the first 5 or something like that. So it's I see myself earning that respect, or one of the things is you notice that other comedians that you respect, or other comedians that are more talented than you, are giving you feedback. That means that they're listening to what you're doing, whereas a year ago, 6 months ago, they weren't, because they weren't interested in you. But now they're listening to what you have to say. That's great. And also, one of the things I can tell that I'm getting better is there are ideas that I knew were funny that were floating in my head when I first started, that I wrote out, and over the course of my many joke notebooks. Once I fill one and move on to the next one, maybe the same idea will show up in multiple notebooks, and it doesn't sound the same, or every notebook or every couple of months, I get closer and closer to making it work. And there are some jokes that I tell now that I know 2 years ago when I first had this idea, it never would have come out this way and it never would have been funny. But now with my performance skills and my writing skills, now that they've grown, I can actually convey this idea that I knew was funny into something that people can actually laugh at.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's totally rad. So it isn't hardcore journaling in a way, but the joke notebooks definitely give you an idea of the advancement of the ideas.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
So how important is it to look back on those joke notebooks and see those jokes, and to maybe try to rehash some of those old things that you knew were going to be good? How important is that to your performance?
I haven't really done it that much. When I know that the more jokes I write, the better my jokes will be. So I don't know if there's anything from the first year and a half that I was doing comedy that I still use. It's just, the jokes that I've written in the last 6 months are all better.
How important is feedback from the other comedians, the ones that you said that you respect? How do you hold that in the highest regard, or is it mostly in your head that you find that that's where the value comes?
It's special when they do say something.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when there are comedians who you don't think are funny that give you stuff, or comedians that are really young that give you stuff. So sometimes I listen, and sometimes I'm like, I'm glad that you were listening to my set, but I don't agree, and I'm going to keep it the way that I'm keeping it. I think it's a lot of, self-reflection that makes you better.
Do you take tapes of yourself and stuff like that?
I do. I have tapes of myself, and I rarely listen. I rarely listen. I think there was only one time when I was really preparing for a gig that I knew that after I didn't have that much time left, and I wouldn't the material that I was creating, I wasn't going to use it ever again, and I really needed to make it tight, and it actually helps. And I know that it helps. I just get so anxious about listening back to myself and hearing the things that do well, but also hearing the things that don't do so well. I get all flustered and I don't want to listen.
What have you found? And I'm not asking you to say like there's absolutely any key to success in this area, but what have you found in the DC area versus Maryland area and versus Virginia? Like going around to these different places, is there a difference that you have to do in your comedy to have that laugh back that you want?
I think there is, but I haven't quite found it yet. I do my best stuff in DC and in Virginia, and I take the same jokes to Maryland and Baltimore, but there's something about Baltimore where I haven't just cracked the audience yet. There's something about them that I don't know, I can't reach them and get the same kind of reactions that I do in DC and Virginia. I don't know what the secret is yet. So if somebody finds out, I hope they'll share it with me.
Next time on the show. And I just want to remind everyone that Chelsea's going to be at the DMV Roast of the Metro on April 1st. Where's that?
It's at the Brixton on U Street.
April 2nd at the Wonderland Ballroom. And April 7th, the Perfect Liars Storyteller Hour, I think is what it's called, or something like that. And that's at where?
I don't quite know yet.
Yeah, me neither. So the highs and the lows of being a performer. I don't know why I talk in such a jive voice all of a sudden. But we were talking during the break and a little bit, actually it was all during the break. There was a time that you had that one of those moments that you were striving for. And then I want to branch that off into something else. But can you tell a little bit about the story?
Sure. I had one of my first goals with how I would know I was funny was I wanted to be able to get on any list for any like gay party in the city that I wanted. And that actually happened a couple weekends ago. I hosted this HRC fundraising event, and the next night they were having this big gala, the big fundraising gala, the main event.
Is that a pun, gala?
No, it's just a gala, whatever. I switch back and forth.
Okay.
So they're having this big gala, and one of the organizers of the entire weekend, she was like, "Oh, do you have a ticket for the gala?" And I was like, "No, I didn't get a ticket." She was like, "We're gonna put you on the list. You're coming with me now." And the gala, I arrive, and I was like, "My name is Chelsea Shorte. I'm here. I was added to the list late, and they couldn't find me." And I was like, "Oh no!" But then they found me on another list, and I go in. It's just like this huge silent auction because everybody there is like has serious money. They're the big donors, and it was just free vodka all night, a delicious meal,
copious amounts of shrimp. I imagine.
Oh,
Copious amounts of shrimp,
chocolate, anything. There was it was amazing, and a big dance party afterwards. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is one of my goals." To get into like some schwanky
you were on the list
event.
You were on the list.
Was on the list, and it was just complimentary for me because I had performed.
There's I put words in your mouth, but I'm gonna do it again. I think for me as a former very minuscule performer, I only performed I think once or twice in front of an actual audience. There was part of the reason that brought me to the idea of performing and doing art in general, and even this podcast. There is that like I want to be something, or I want to be someone who's doing something, and it's not because I'm looking for recognition of like, oh, that person is famous and I want to kiss their ass, but there is that like, oh, like I want to be known as that person or that guy that does that thing. And you were talking a little bit about, what brought you to the idea of being a performer. Would you say that there's a little bit of that, like you wanted to wear it like a badge of honor? Yeah.
I mean, I want to, they say whenever you get on a show that it's not a competition, you just do your best. But, if you really want to be great at this, that means, you need to be the best on the show.
Right.
So you try to be your best, but then your best needs to be better than everybody else's best because that's the only way you're going to make it.
And that's something that Herbie even talked to in the very first episode, or maybe it was Becca, but if you're up there and you're on the stage, you are demanding attention, and you better damn sure deserve it, because if you don't, I'm going to put my phone up in front of my face and then completely tune you out.
Yeah, Herbie's a real stickler for that, and he's a great person to learn from, that kind of 100% all the time.
Right.
Because that's the only way you're going to get better. What's the point of going up and doing and giving it half-ass? Because you're up there trying to improve yourself. Nobody's there to improve you except you.
Yeah. And I mean, and someone paid money to see you.
Oh, yeah. When somebody pays money, you better don't fuck around.
Yeah.
That's where I am right now. I'm sure, once comedy becomes even more like a job instead of like a hobby for me, maybe I'll get a little bit jaded. And
Vocation.
There'll be, some off nights, bad day at the office type thing. But, whenever anybody pays money, I'm going to give them the best show I can.
How do you feel about, do you have a daytime gig? You have a full-time job?
I do, yeah. I'm a software developer.
Oh, do you love it?
You know what? I just switched jobs. That's why my Twitter is now available again. It was locked down.
It was funny because the very first time I found you on Twitter, it was on lockdown, and I was like, man, she must say some really messed up shit.
No, I just wasn't. I just didn't want any, possible employers to look through and not understand that X
see
was a
your
joke.
salty jokes. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's okay.
Right.
I'd much rather be writing all day, and sometimes that's what I do. I write all day. The company writes me a check.
When we talk to some of the artists, it's funny because I'll say, well, have you ever thought about like using your craft to make money? Like, and it's an oversimplification, but like if you're a guitar player in a band, have you ever thought about being in a wedding band or playing like as a studio musician and stuff like that? And then oftentimes the response is, well, I'll just get a job. And I'm like, yeah, but your art could be your job.
Yeah. That's like the big dive. And that's how some comedians, every comedian has their own, this is how you do it. Or, but I've heard several times that, if you want to make it as a comedian, then just start making it as a comedian. Sever all the ties that you have to your job and go out on the road and make it work.
Are you ready for that?
I'm not.
Have you done on the road? Have you gone on the road and done?
No, I haven't. I'm still trying to get in at the Improv. I've hosted at the Arlington Draft House a few times, but I haven't gotten a weekend at the Improv yet. That's one of my goals to get before. I think it was one of my goals for like 2012 and for 2013. But so yes, it's a goal for 2014, and it's definitely one of the goals I need to make before I move to one of the bigger comedy markets.
So you've been doing it for how many years now? 3 years?
Like 2.5, 3 years.
2.5 years. So you actually probably have seen, you're in it long enough now where you've probably been a more seasoned comic occasionally on certain nights.
Definitely, yeah.
And so when you see the younger generation coming up, like, do they ask you for advice? Are they still in their own shell?
Sometimes, some people do.
Do you shake them a little bit? Like, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm not the veteran, but I got to tell you something. Are you that person?
No. I mean, no. I'm not like a good mentor. I don't think anybody really plays that role. Every once in a while, you might give somebody some feedback, and if they ask, of course, I'll give them feedback. But it's really easy to just get focused on yourself or on the people who are your friends. So, when new comics come, our community, even though it's really welcoming and we're really fun and I think we're really supportive, especially when you might compare us to what I've heard other comedy communities in other cities are like, we're still accused of being cold and not letting people in. But
you're from DC, you're very cold and distant. Everyone knows that.
But the comedy community in particular, where it's like, I did stand up like once and nobody was high-fiving me and stuff. We're pretty protective over our community. It's kind of one of those things where you have to show us that you're really interested in committing to comedy before, we're going to try to remember your name.
Can you tell? So, I feel like you were talking about one person in particular when you said that. You were like, forget your name, sir.
No, nobody in particular, but
when you see performers come on, do you think you can tell like after once or twice, like whether or not they're going to stick with it, or can you tell if there's any talent there?
No, I don't think I can tell whether they're going to stick with it or not. And I don't actually think you can tell whether talent will arise. Mm-hmm. Like, I can never look at somebody and say they will never get it. But there are some people that get on stage and are like, you're already pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
I'm sure when I remember the first time I did, because I started with a class at the DC Improv, and they like helped me write 5 minutes, and I was like mentored by an actual professional comedian. But the first time I ever did any of my own organic, unhelped 5 minutes worth of comedy, it was absolutely horrible. I completely bombed at RFD.
Do you have a tape of that?
No, thank God I don't. Thank God I don't. I remember like that was a really interesting experience because I got off stage. You know, I went on stage and I wrote some comedy that is completely different from who I am now. It was completely inauthentic to even who I was then, but I thought it was funny and I thought it was what people wanted to hear, and I absolutely bombed. And I get off stage and I feel amazing because I just went up there and I did something which for me at the time was really brave. I went up there and debuted 100% 5 minutes of completely original material, and I was feeling really great. I was feeling that performer's high. And then all the other comics came up to me, and some of my friends were like, you know, that's okay, don't worry about it, you know, you'll get it next time. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? That was awesome. Like I just didn't get it.
What in terms of when you're talking about the highs and the lows, do you still have those off nights where it just doesn't sink in with the audience? Are you able at this point in your career to tell the difference between like, this is my off night and I was failing, or no, my stuff was really killing, this was just a quote unquote bad crowd, if you will?
I feel like I can tell, or at least I tell myself that I can tell. But you know, Herbie again is one of those guys that like, no, it's your job. It's never the audience's fault. I don't know if he'll actually say that. He seems like the kind of guy that would be like, you need to, you know, be responsible for your performance. It's your job to get up there and make them laugh. And if you didn't, you failed.
Right.
But there are definitely times when I'm like, yeah, I was not on my game, or that audience was really bad. But in the end, it's just your job to make them laugh. So.
No, I get that.
And from all those different experiences, you can learn something. I
was going to say, you know, because even though, and this, I hope this really comes through in the interview, because as much as we joked about your boastfulness and your pride, at the same time, it sounds to me like in the way you answer these questions that you're always listening for, you know, like it's not always about this is the way it is. It sounds like you're very open to other ideas.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
I was about to.
I was listening to you then.
I was about to, like, you were going to be like, what? No, I don't know.
You're full of shit.
You're full of shit.
No.
But it does seem like you are open to like new ideas, and it seems like you don't feel like you have made it, or of any way. I mean, it seems like you're still hungry, I guess is what I guess.
Yeah, I know. There are so many goals that I see right in front of me now. You know, there are goals that I don't even know to see yet because I haven't reached the ones that are in front of me. But I always try to stay in the mindset that I can learn from anyone. I can learn from a veteran who's been doing it for 30 years and has a whole bunch of stand-up specials. I can learn from watching their stand-up specials. And then I can learn from people who've only been doing it a year because they're just as fearless because they don't know what. Sometimes it kind of feels like, you know, I have the success doing what I do now. I'm good at this. And it's hard to try other things because you don't want to give up, you know, the success that you have, or you don't want to destroy a set by doing something completely different than what you've been doing. You're like, right. Why don't I just keep doing this, keep growing in this? But, you know, I think there are certain times when I look at how I can diversify even just my stand-up with how I can, what different types of writing I can do or different types of act outs. So I'm definitely one to try to keep learning and keep reflecting on my performances and my writing.
All right. Well, let me ask you just a couple more quick questions, and then I'm gonna let you go. Who are the comedians right now that you are enjoying? Because I know you have to watch a lot of comedians do their acts again and again and again and again and again.
Oh, you mean local comedians?
Yeah, local comedians.
Oh, that's great. Because before you said local, the first person I thought it was a local comedian. My friend Ahmed Vallejo.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I love him just because he's my good friend. But, you know, watching what he does on stage and how much confidence he's gotten over the last, 3 months, maybe 4 months or so. And I just think he's just so smart and creative.
Was he on the show at the Black Cat?
I don't think so.
Okay.
He was not on the show at the Black Cat.
I don't know if I've seen Ahmed.
Herbie's really great to watch and study, and he's also really great when you get off stage because he, you know, if you ever ask him a question, he will give you everything that he knows about that to try to help you. So Herbie's really cool to watch because, you know, it's like he does it so simply. You know, he's just a guy up there telling jokes that are really funny. And I know that sounds so silly, but he sits and he writes, and he uses the structure of comedy and the lessons, tried and true lessons of comedy, to make a routine that always works. Like, I don't think I've seen Herbie have a bad set. Not to say that he doesn't, but he's so consistent, which is really cool.
No, he would tell you that same thing. No, I'm only kidding. But on his, if you're fans of the podcast, on the very first show, he talks a little bit about the science of the comedy, and just a very small amount, and he could probably definitely take it down that path. Herbie, and it's a phrase that's overused, but he gets it. He knows that there are multitudes of things in your performance, and he's figured out how to make it look seamless in his performance. To really nerd it up about Herbie, it's his eye motions, it's the way he delivers the jokes, it's the way he holds his mouth.
That's right.
And if he says he doesn't think about that stuff, I know he does, because it is. And it's consistent in show to show that you see him. And it's either like muscle memory or whatever it is, but there's definitely, it's all part of the performance. It's the way he holds the mic. It's the way he walks. And that, when you deliver that as part of the package, it's pretty masterful. Yeah. Now, there are comedians, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, who just do some of those things naturally, because they are someone who is naturally funny and has a naturally funny way. And that's fine. But I think that, it's the marriage of the two things together. You have to be whatever naturally funny means, but then you have to be smart enough to know that you have to study what you've done to get to where you are.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part of what I think Herbie brings to the table.
Yeah, he's a student of comedy and seems to be a student of himself, which is, he's reaping all those benefits.
He is. And it's funny because I say it, I love talking to Herbie. Herbie likes talking about Herbie. It's just a fun conversation to have. But it is, whether it's about comedy or whether it's about his just outlook on life, the man is freaking smart as a whip, and it's fun to talk to him. Anyway, he should be back on the show. I've been bugging him to be on the show. Chelsea Shorte, I really appreciate you being on the show,
I had so much fun.
This is definitely one of my favorite ones.
As soon as I can come back, I'll come back.
I would really appreciate it.
I love talking about me, and I love talking about comedy, and I love talking about Herbie. So.
And I would say that if you want to have me on your show when you start your show, I would love to have a piece of the Vanity Project.
Know what? You coming out and saying that's a good idea actually makes me feel more confident about actually doing it.
Awesome.
So maybe I will.
You definitely should.
I should. I will.
I
will start my own podcast.
You should definitely, because a community built around the Vanity just fuck it. I'll see you later.
Okay.
A song about small wonder, popular by demand. A small wonder song, I hope that you're glad. Mickey Robot, how I love you so. She's the finest girl robot that I know. She had a fleshy brother, and then made her so. Don't remember that much about that show. We did cry some tears once, made her circuits blow. Came up with this crap nobody knows. A song about small wonder, popular by demand. A small wonder song, I hope that you're glad.
Was the Electric Grandmother with Small Wonder. Kurt Foster, discuss.
I don't know if I have the words.
I also played another song for you. You got to hear his cover of Europe's Final Countdown,
Yeah. Now that,
all a cappella.
I hope when we see them at the Galaxy Hut in May,
May 11th.
maybe they leave that off the set list. Maybe give me some more deep cuts.
Oh.
Not so many hits.
He has, I would say each album has at least 25 songs on it.
So let me ask you this: could you just blindly yell out, sitcom titles, or just be like Jackie? And you'd be like, well, we do have a song about 227.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I can't make a 227.
Well, when you said Jackie, I thought you meant
Jackie.
Jackie. I thought you meant Jackie from,
See, this is the problem. If we're not on the same page about the TV shows, how's he going to know what we're talking about?
like what if he had a song about Uncle Jesse, and everyone would think that he was going to sing about the Dukes of Hazzard fella.
Yeah,
But
Full House is immediately what comes to
It
mind.
doesn't come to mind for me. Some of us live Dukes of Hazzard. We bled orange.
I respect that, and I'm not going to lie to you. When we were at the Forest Inn several weeks ago,
What a great place that
and
is.
somebody played the Dukes of Hazzard theme song on the jukebox, it brought a little tear to my eye because I still have the 45 record of it at my parents' house.
Have we talked about the Black Forest Inn at all?
We
on
haven't.
The show?
Here's what I think we should do. I think we should take a field recorder and do a secret episode from there.
No, we don't do a secret one. I think we.
Well, they probably wouldn't give a shit one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, most of what goes on in that place is secret, just based on the tunnel vision people have from drinking too much.
Yeah. I went over to Westover Market last night to get some beer, and two jabronis who were standing outside Forest Inn smoking totally stared me down.
How much did you walk away at Westover, like paying $65 for 2 6-packs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I overpaid because I was looking for a specific kind of thing that only they carry, but they were out. But then I was like, I came all the way over here.
Was it Belgian?
So I bought the stuff. No, I bought the stuff that I normally buy at Harris Teeter for like $3 more. No, I was looking for an Irish cream ale.
Is there anything trickier than their make a 6-pack? Because for me, make a 6-pack means a certain price.
Yeah, I'm confused by the whole thing.
Every bottle is a different price.
Yeah, it freaks me out, man.
I actually had like an $18 6-pack at one point.
Oy. I'm just gonna go back and drink my my Radiator gin that I've been making. Yeah, stick with the basics.
Delicious.
It is.
So the Pilotways podcast is wrapping up. On the Pilotways podcast, which you might have heard me talk about earlier, we like to interview comedians and musicians, entrepreneurs of all kinds, people trying to make a business by doing something really fucking hard, like entertaining and feeding and all those things. Kurt Foster, I want to thank you for joining me. You are a musician. You work hard for us, and for that we thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we ask you, the public, to just spend an hour with us listening to these stories, not just of Kurt, but of the Chelsea Shortes of the world, of the Becca Steinhoffs of the world, of the Presto Bandos of the world, of the Jim Thompsons of the world. These people's stories, they're just like stories like you or I would tell. It's stories of not having enough money. It's stories of how expensive things are, but it's also stories about how much they love their craft and how much they love to bring these things to you. And Kurt, I want to give you the last word. Any parting thoughts for our friends in the listening audience?
Oh, don't do that. I got nothing. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Keep on trucking.
Cliche.
Yeah, that's what I bring to the table.
Like a warm cup of tea, that's how you always feel to me. Oh, a taste of you can cure almost any melody. If I'm sleepy or I'm blue, if I hurt or have the flu, oh, it's you I turn to. Oh, I never knew I needed you so much. Oh, the thought of you, the smell of you, the touch, it fills me up with comfort. It helps to keep me calm, but this tea's grown cold and bitter, 'cause I've let it steep too long. I need a brand new beverage. I'm sick of all this tea. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm switching to coffee.